Good morning or good afternoon. I'm Danny Rubin. Welcome to our next installment of our virtual internship series. Our company is Rubin. We're based in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we provide online curriculum for business communication skills. Those of you who have been here before, you know one of our biggest things is email etiquette. If you're new to us, instructors, if you're new to us, or even if you've been here before, raise your Zoom hand if your students ever send you emails that look like text messages. You get emails that look like texts. Anybody's hands up for that? So we help students write and speak professionally for opportunities. And we're going to learn about one of those career opportunities today with our special guest, Ms. Hiral Patel. And we'll do that in just a few moments. We have my colleagues, Mac and Alexis, here from the Rubin team. They'll be helping out in the chat. If anybody has questions, so you two can hop over there. And again, Ms. Kelly Greers will be providing our sign language. And well, Mac just provided, thank you, Mac. I almost forgot, I did forget. We put out a worksheet ahead of today's session. And if you don't have it yet, you can click the link right there. It has some questions to guide today's conversation. So feel free to get that worksheet. And as we get started, the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. As we do every time, we love to share resources. Some of you may have these resources, but we always have new people. Raise your hand if you're new. This is your first time here. Any first timers today? So what we love to do is give out resources for business communication. As a company, we provide an online curriculum for business communication called Emerge. And what we'd love to give you are some free resources from Emerge around email etiquette. Look at the topics on the right side that we like to cover: how to make a professional email address, how to not send an email like a text, how to write a subject line, addressing teachers and employers properly, making an email signature. Teachers, how many of you receive emails where the entire message is in the subject line? Anybody's hands up? Or the subject line is blank. So we tackle these challenges to help students learn to communicate effectively, to be taken seriously for internships and jobs. So we'd love for you to have these resources. They're free. They're in a Google Drive folder. I'll tell you how to get it in just a second. We also always give out a virtual presentation checklist because online presentations are becoming more and more the norm today in our post-COVID world, if we can call it that yet. I'm not quite sure. And we'd love to give you this online checklist too. So if you'd like these resources and you don't have them yet, this is for the instructors. Go to the chat right now. And it's very simple. You just type your email address and the word interested. Your email address and the word interested in the chat. And we will provide you the resources. What we like to do is have a brief conversation with the new instructors, the new educators in our community today, to help you understand who we are, help you make the most of these resources. Just type the word interested and your email address, and we will send you an invitation for Thursday on your calendar for 5 minutes. And if the time is not good, you can respond back and we'll find a better time. But we love to say hello, help you make sense of our resources, and you can share it not only with your students, but with your school. Really push these ideas out into the school, into the program. So interested and your email, and then we will make sure that you have it. Also, continue to do so, and I'll hop to the next slide. We can get to our guest in just a moment. We also have one final virtual internship session, which will of this academic year will be on May 10th, the world of banking and finance. We're talking to a professional who works for an online banking platform called Chime. Has anybody heard of Chime before? Seen their ads? CHIME. So he works for Chime, Adam Rosen, and he'll tell us all about what that sort of modern era online banking platform is all about, as an interesting perspective on the future of finance for the consumer. Everybody here today will be receiving a certificate for being present with us. That'll come to you on Thursday. Okay. And also, if you are watching this on a recording, you can still have the same resources that we mentioned just a moment ago. Send us an email to the email in red with Rubin email worksheets, and we'll make sure that you have those resources that way. Okay. So with that, I'm going to pull back, and I would love to introduce our special guest, Ms. Hiral Patel. Thank you for being with us today and sharing your knowledge and experience. Let's start with your sort of career history. I know you didn't begin in the United States, so your story is a little different than other guests we've had who have just gone through a traditional sort of American education. Tell us your journey and bring us up to today and the work you're doing now.
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you to you for giving me this opportunity to speak
Welcome.
with all the students and probably future lab scientists.
That's right.
My name is Hiral Patel, and I am from India. I earned my first bachelor degree in microbiology from India. And I over there, the education system works a little different than United States. We have 3 years of college, which is graduate degree, instead of the 4 year. So I finished my 3 year bachelor degree in microbiology. Then I went for MLT, which is a medical laboratory technician. It's a diploma degree, which is 1 year. So altogether, it was like a 4 year.
Okay.
Once I moved over here to the United States, the credentials doesn't match, so I have to do my degree evaluation through the some organization in the United States, and they evaluate my India degree and they give me some credits, not all of them, since the education system is different. So I decided to go to one of local university in Virginia, which is Old Dominion University. They have an MT program, medical technology. And since I had my some of the credit transfer over from India, I didn't have to go through all 4 year college. So I probably did 2 year instead of the 4 year, and I earned my second bachelor in by the time I graduated, they changed the name of the degree. It used to be medical technology, but now it's called medical laboratory science. So I am MLS, medical laboratory scientist, and I graduated in 2012. After my graduation, I applied for the workplace I'm working currently, which is the Santia Healthcare, which is very well known into the local area. Um, and since then, I'm working with Santira from last 9 years as a lab tech.
Thank you. So you work for Centera, which in the Virginia is a large hospital system. Like wherever you live, you have a large, maybe more than one hospital system. So she's part of that system. Thank you for that background. I'm going to share my screen because let me ask the group, anybody who's been here before, what do we always do with our guests that we show we did before the interview? It's an R word. What do we always show we've done with our guests before we talk to them? Anybody remember that word? We always begin the same way, and I'm going to share my screen and we'll talk about it. So, well, respect is yes. Isaac, you're right, respect. So let's call it 1A and 1B. Respect, and we do our research. We do our research. We research our guests. We know about them and about where they work. And we'll talk about why. So I was on Ms. Patel's LinkedIn page. I saw that she's been at Centera for 9 years. Prior to that, she was at Patient First, right? So she has a lot of experience now. She lays out her job titles, can see that she went to school at Old Dominion. So we're learning about her backstory. And I also went to the Centera Healthcare website. Now, why would I do that? What I did was I went to the Centera newsroom, which is down here in the bottom. And I saw a story that Centera Hospital donated $3.5 million in medical supplies to help the war effort and natural disasters in Ukraine, Poland, Haiti, and the Philippines. Now, why would I do that? Now, imagine I'm going to an interview with Ms. Patel to work on her team, right? And I can already tell her something I've learned about Centera. I could say, I just read the story about how the hospital system donated money to foreign causes. Ms. Patel, if somebody came to you for an interview and already knew about Centera and about the work that they're doing, what would that say to you as you looked at me as an applicant?
I feel like that you really did your research, and I feel very appreciated, like, like you really worth my time, and you put an effort into me, knowing me, what I'm doing, and in my organization.
Thank you. I think that's what you said is I became someone who is worth your time, right? And you're a very busy person. You don't have to interview me. You could have lots of applicants, lots of interviews. How many students think they could do what I did to go to the website of the company where you want to work and read about something that they've put out there on their website, some recent announcement, some big event? Any hands up? How many of you could do that? Or teachers, how many of your students could do that? Just visit the site, read an article, and then when you're in the interview, bring it up, right? So we want to teach the power of always doing our research, because if we can talk about the employer or their company early in the interview, it can change the whole dynamic of that interaction. It can make them like you a lot more quickly and help you with the job. So as we get into our conversation, I would like for any teachers and students to start to put their own questions in the Q&A area in Zoom. Go to the bottom of the bottom row. It says Q&A. Start putting your questions for our guest, and I will ask them for you. And as we do that, I'll start off with the first question. So Ms. Patel, take us through your day. What types of tasks are you doing? Maybe you're now more supervisory, but if you're doing the work as well, what is some of the science, the medicine, the actions that you're taking? What does your day look like?
So when it's come to the lab, most of the people know lab as a draw site, like, when you go to the lab and they draw your blood. But the most important part that is done is behind the scene, where we don't able to see it, which is a laboratory where we actually perform the testing. And in the place I work it is called a community site. We do have a reference lab, and I used to work at the reference lab for 7 years, and I moved down here and I'm working as a supervisor from last 2 years in this community sites. Over here, we perform a variety of tasting, which is chemistry testing, which includes your blood glucose, your electrolytes, and lipid panel, your renal panel, which is kidney function test, liver function test, all those kind of stuff. And then we have a hematology testing, which is your complete blood cell counts, which include your white blood cell, red blood cell, platelet count. Um, then we have blood bank. We have a urine analysis, which is, your urine culture, the sensitivity, if you have any urine infection. We have a stool test, sputum test. We do have microbiology, and we definitely do the kit testing, which is strep and flu, monocytosis, COVID. So we do variety of testing over here, which also includes some of the special chemistry, which is toxicology, like drug testing in a urine and a blood. So my day looks like when I walk in the morning, according to the schedule, what I supposed to do on that day. Like, since lab is not just one thing, we have so many different benches based on all those department I just told you. So I'm assigned on one of the bench to perform that task for the day. So if I'm in a hematology, I'm assigned for the hematology bench, and I perform all the testing, all the bloods, and all the specimens that come through my department. I have to call first of all, I have to, for each department has the instruments which require the QC, quality control, and the maintenance every day, to making sure that the result that we are reporting out is accurate enough. Like, that's why we perform the quality control. Sometimes we do every shift, sometimes we do every 12 hours based on our SOP. And we have to call the doctors and nurses for the critical lab. Like, for example, your hemoglobin and hematocrit is way too low, then below the reference range, then we call them, notify them, like, hey, this thing needs immediate attention. so they
I
treat
see.
the patient based on that. And also you have to be very critical thinker, like patient is on the blood thinner, and we do also test perform the testing that is called for the heparin, warfarin. Those are the blood thinner commonly used. So they have to monitor the dosage based on what patient need and what don't need. If you give too much, probably patient gonna bleed to death. If you don't give enough, probably patient gonna clot and die, right?
Wow.
So
So there's a
we
lot of
have,
trust on your team to get it right, because
yes, yes.
it's critical to somebody's health that you give exact, recommendations from the lab.
Exactly. So when you come in a lab, nowadays I would say we are very blessed that we are into the 21st century. We have all of this technology and we don't have to do lots of manual work. But even though we have automated instrumentation who do all the work for us, we have to critically think. For example, if I'm receiving the blood from a patient who is on a heparin, and they drew the blood while the heparin drip is going on, like when they set up a IV line into the patient uh, uh, line, and they didn't stop the line and they draw the blood, that will contaminate the blood, that will contaminate the tube. And when I put it on my instrument doesn't know that this blood is contaminated. Now when I get the result, it's on me now as a lab tech. If it's gonna be, I compare my result with the previous result. If it's gonna be too high, I'm gonna question, like, why it is too high? 4 hours ago this patient was normal, suddenly what just happened in 4 hours that this give me this high value, right? So that process starts. So when I call the nurse, I ask all the question, like, did you stop the line, did you flush the line, or did you draw a waste tube before you draw this tube? So those kind of question, it comes with definitely you need education, like which tube is used for which one. Like when you get your blood drawn, probably you see they come up with so many rainbow tubes like purple and blue and red. So
Yes.
each tube has different additives and each tube used for different department,
I
like
was
human.
okay. I was wondering that. I had my blood drawn last week for a physical, and I just don't know, like, what happens after that. Where do they take my blood? What goes on? And you're the person who can tell us that.
Yeah, and sometimes you get so mad at them, like, oh my gosh, she drew so much blood out of me. What's she
Yes.
gonna do with that blood, right? But we need that blood because if she draw lavender, it can be only used for hematology. Probably she cannot run it your chemistry, which is glucose and
Well, okay, that's my
your
question. One
electrolytes.
question for you. Why can't they run all the tests off of one vial? Why do they need multiple vials to run different tests?
So each test has a different instrument for that. For example, chemistry can be run off the SST, which is a big tube with the red top on it, and also the light green tube. Now each tube has a different additives. When you start, let's say you get a cut and you start bleeding, right? So after you're gonna put some pressure on that cut, your blood gonna stop, right? You won't bleed anymore because you have some mechanism going on that working in your blood to stop that blood, right? So as soon as you draw out the blood, and if I'm going to leave that blood into the syringe, it will clot because it has those clotting factor
Hmm.
that started working as soon as it's come out of your veins, so for some tests we need clotted blood, because blood when you so your blood has mainly two components, which is your red cells, which give the red color. It has all your red cells, white blood cell, and the platelets. Platelets are the one that helps you clot the blood, which we need them. Otherwise, we're gonna bleed to death if we're gonna get cut, right? So when we get the blood in the lab, we centrifuge them. So when you centrifuge, we separate those red cells and we want to use the plasma, which is a clear uh, fluid that can be separated from the plasma. If you ever donated a blood, like, into the
The
American
Red
Red
Cross.
Cross, yes, they sometimes say we only want plasma, and they have a system that filtered the plasma out, and they put your red cell back in your body.
Wow.
So some of the analyzer, especially chemistry, they are only compatible with serum or plasma. The only difference between serum and plasma is the clotting factor. Your serum do not have
Okay.
any clotting factor.
Okay.
While the red blood cell, which is the whole blood, which can be used for variety of testing, for example, hemoglobin A1C to monitor your diabetes, right? Probably if you or your family member, if you heard of it, if they have a diabetes, they not just do that fasting sugar, but also do the hemoglobin A1C, which give you a long term monitoring of the glucose in your body.
Okay. Thank you for all this. This is really interesting. Takes us behind the scenes of what goes on. And I wanted to point out to the students, we try to use these sessions as a learning experience for not just the career, but also just talking to adults, right? And what she said to me was, we need the 3 vials many times when they draw your blood. And so what I did is I asked a follow-up question. I said, why do you need all 3? Why can't you just do it with 1, right? And what I did was I listened to what she was saying. Something was interesting to me. I wanted to know more. So I asked a question to learn more. And for all the students watching, that's a very important skill to begin to work on at a young age. It's okay to ask about something you don't understand. Ms. Patel, if you had a student walking around with you in the lab and you were telling the student all this information, would you want the student to ask you a follow-up question to show that they're actually thinking about what you're saying instead of just letting it all just go right on by? Do you want the student to be curious and engaged with you?
Yes, definitely. And that what the quality that gonna, that's a curiosity, first of all, that, you are curious to learn something. And when you're gonna ask me question, I gonna feel like, yes, this person is interested. And probably I'm already into the field for so many years. So sometimes those terminology and stuff that
Right.
just come and you don't.
Second nature.
Exactly. And you don't realize that the person in front of you probably don't understand you as much as you do, because I'm here in the field for so many years.
Right.
And when I'm gonna say CDC, probably you'd be like, I don't know what
Right.
she's talking about.
And that's what I'm getting at, right? If you say a term or an abbreviation, the student should feel comfortable to say, what does that stand for? And actually, we have a couple of really good questions from our audience around this topic. So the first question from Joseph Kraft. Thank you, Joseph. How often do hospitals take on student interns in the lab? Is that even possible for students to intern or shadow in your lab?
So yes, we do have a student, but not a high school student, unfortunately. We do have a student who are already into the program. So we have surrounding colleges who are kind of
Yes.
send their student for the clinical rotation. And we do have student, like I just had a student 2 weeks ago who just finished her rotation over here. So we always have a student over here, and Center is a big facility. It's like a 12 hospitals, and they send student to anywhere, wherever they can accommodate. So,
Okay.
but I don't see any high school student. Probably we have an education coordinator who works with the program director. So if you are interested, then you can reach out to the hospital education coordinator and make some arrangements.
That's actually a great segue. The next question, James Hatter. Thank you, James. Do you have advice for teachers to help their students getting into your career field? If the students want to pursue a lab tech and they're in high school, what would you recommend they be doing right now? What classes should they take, or things they should be doing in the community? Like, how can they be preparing now for that job?
Okay, so I'm so sorry I cannot answer that question so precisely, because I haven't
Right.
finished
I
my
know your
school in
experience was
here.
different.
Yeah, but any healthcare classes that high school can offer, yes, definitely you want to do that. Or you can reach out to the facility who allow shadowing, like in your summertime when you have free time, you can shadow. If you're interested into the lab tech, reach out through your school if they allow shadowing. Also, in your uh, not high school, the college, you probably need to take biology major, but I don't think so. On until you reach your second or third year of the college, you can make the decision like
Right.
which way you want to go. Yes, and based on that, you get into this program if whatever the university you select to go, if
Okay.
they are offering this MLT or MT. Yes, and let me tell you, there are so many different kind of the program. MLT is an associate degree. It
And what
doesn't
does that
require
stand for? What does MLT stand for?
it is called medical laboratory technician.
Okay, medical laboratory
Okay.
technician. Everybody taking notes. We have our worksheet. Mac, throw the worksheet one more time, please. Please let's write down these terms so we can look them up later. And what is the other one?
The other one is called MT, which is medical technologies. So
Okay,
when
MLT or
say tech,
MT?
MT is a bachelor degree, MLT is association degree.
Okay, associates or bachelors. Okay, this is really helpful. Another great question from James Hatter. And by the way, if anybody else has questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll get a few more questions in. He said, how has your industry changed since COVID? How has the lab changed since COVID? What's different now?
I think the only thing I noticed different is we are getting lots of COVID testing.
Yes, that would be a change. That didn't exist, right?
Yes, and now that all of the patient who goes under surgery or who have any kind of procedure, they require to have COVID testing before they go
Right.
for the procedure. So for a lab, I mean, as a hospital, yes, that's a new requirement. And for a lab, since it's a requirement for all the patient who goes under surgery or the people who travel, those kind of things, when we have a travel restriction and stuff. So that's the only thing I think of as a
Because
difference after the COVID.
you were already had to be a very sterile environment, very clean, masks. Like you were probably doing you're a lab, so you were doing all of these things. The public had to start washing their hands more than they ever thought and wearing masks all the time. These are different, but in your world, you were already doing many of these things just because you had to be so clean to,
Yes.
view people's blood and testing. So
Yeah,
that makes
so
sense.
anything that comes into the lab is called the biohazard. So it's a biohazard material, any kind of body fluid, which is a blood, urine, stool, sputum, anything that comes out of human body is a biohazard, and that is a potential hazardous. It can cause infection. So even before the COVID, we used to take a precautions like this, like
Sure.
wearing a mask, wearing
Right.
gloves, wearing all the PPEs,
That makes
that
sense.
was part of our life. So that way I don't feel any difference other than we are having a little more
More
workload.
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want right now you're a supervisor, right? So it's important that students know that you can start as like a lab technician, for example, and there are opportunities to grow in the job, take on more leadership, right? Oversee a team. So what has your path been like? Was management something that you wanted to do? Did you want to be a supervisor eventually, or did that happen just because you had been there, so long?
So yes, I always wanted to grow. So when I moved here, it was kind of very new to me. I mean, the country was new, the people was new, language was new, and definitely the healthcare system was new to me. So when I started working for Santera, I was trying to understand everything at the same time. But I had always in a mind that I want to grow and I want to become a leader. So that is one thing that I want to tell all the students, that if you are interested into the leadership role, some of the hospital, and my hospital is one of them, they only allow you to grow if you have a bachelor degree.
Mm,
So if you decided to do the associate degree, which is MLT, some of the hospital don't allow. I mean, my hospital is one of them. But I also work at the patient first for 2 years.
yes, yes.
It was my part-time job, and over there, there is no difference between MT and MLT. Even the pay grade is same too. At my hospital, the pay grade is different. For the MLT is a different, than MT is a different. So that one thing that you want to keep in mind. Um, Associate degree will be only probably 2 years after the high school, but you also have to keep in mind the hospitals or the healthcare system that you are going to work. Do they have any pay difference, or do they have any different
Great point.
criteria? Yes, yes,
Because it is very common to be a leader, a manager. They look for a bachelor's degree. And so
yes.
that's in lots of industries. That's, generally seen as favorable. So I'm glad you said that here. That's important for the students to understand. Another great question. Thank you again, Joseph Kraft. What do you look for in a lab technician besides the certifications and the experience? Is it a certain kind of person? Do they have attention to detail? Are they very focused? What's the kind of mentality that you want to see in somebody?
So, as a new grad, let's see, you already have your bachelor or associate degree, and you are getting interviews for the lab tech position. I think one thing we are looking for is how, so in a lab you work as a team, like you are not individually working, and which is the main thing, that you want to be a team player. And because you are working with a team, even though you are making individual decision for your own department for that day, but for example, when you are going on a break, you cannot leave your department alone, right? You have somebody to cover your department. The same way, when they go on a break, you are covering that department. So things like that. And sometimes you have a critical situation where you don't know how to react. Even though after all these 9 years of experience in a lab, I still have some questions that I cannot tackle it by myself. So I have to go and ask my team member, like, hey, what do you think about this one? Like, I don't know how to do this, or can you teach me the way you are doing it? So teamwork is very important. And you have to be a critical thinker. As I told you earlier about that heparin
Yes,
assay.
yes. I mean, really, like being aware of what you're doing. You take one of these and sort of you're half paying attention, and you could really hurt somebody if you're just kind of going
Exactly.
through your motions and you're not thinking about every little step. It can be very dangerous.
Yes, definitely. You put yourself in a danger, and also a patient. One bad decision can hurt somebody really bad.
Wow. I think that's a great answer to that question. And I appreciate the great questions that we've had in the chat. I want to stay with us, Ms. Patel. We're going to do, again, we try to do a lot of learning in our sessions. And today we did this a month or so ago and it went well. We're going to learn an employability skill right now. Those of you who are new to us, we're going to learn. Let me ask the teachers a question. Teachers, how many of you want to make sure that by the time your students graduate, they know how to sign their name in cursive? Any hands for signing their name in cursive? So what I'm going to do, we did this once and it went well. So we're going to do it one more time. I'm going to share my screen. And what I want the students to do at your desk, on your computer, with a pen or pencil or with a digital pen or your finger on the screen. I want you to observe the uppercase letters first and then the lowercase letters. And I want you to practice your initials right now, your first and last initials, looking at the list of letters, the alphabet. So, and I'll go back and forth. Let's start here. I want you to write down your initials, and then you're going to fill in the lowercase letters on the next screen. So I'll give you a second to kind of get yourself. I know you didn't know I was going to do this, kind of pull the wild card, but this is important. And I'll ask Ms. Patel, talk about I'm sure you have to sign your name on documents all the time. Signing off
Yes.
that you reviewed something, that your name is attached to it. Do you believe that everyone should know how to sign their name? Oh, she's got a,
Give me a second.
sure, okay. Well, we'll go back to the students. I want you to, again, start working on your first and last. And I was asking Ms. Patel, do you think it's important that we know how to sign our name before we graduate?
It is definitely important because in a lab, you are signing almost everywhere on your maintenance log, on your workbench, whatever the document you review. Yes, you are signing and putting your initial every single document.
Every single document, so multiple times a day, thousands of times a year. And so I just changed the slide to the lowercase letters. So let's fill in our lowercase letters of our name. And I can jump back up top in a moment if you need help, but hopefully you got the first letters of your first and last name. And then let's fill it in. And I want you to practice your name at least 3 times. And then you can continue to do so. And I want to hear from any of the teachers right now. Are your students doing this right now? We have any takers out there? Any students currently practicing their name? Tell us in the chat, teachers, if this is going on in your classroom and how it's going. Give us a little feedback from in the chat, please. We want to cover very practical skills in our webinars alongside learning about different jobs. And many teachers were appreciative of this lesson in a previous session, so we wanted to do it again. Any light bulbs coming on for students? Anybody successfully signed their name yet? I'll go back up.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, if that's taking place in your room, please let us know, because we want to know if this lesson is sticking. And we want to, again, bring these employability skills right to the classroom so we can make your students ready, not just for the job itself, but all these little life skills that come along with a job or with just being, an adult. And this is a big piece of it. So if your students had successfully signed their name, tell us in the chat, and we'd like to know. And hopefully for those who watch on a recording, then they can practice in the future too. Good, they do enjoy using cursive, and I've signed my name and some of my classmates are trying as well. Great, thank you for the comment. My 3rd grade teacher made it a grade to learn this. It's a very smart 3rd grade teacher, because we talk with educators around the country, even college, and this skill is being lost. Cursive writing is not taught. So at a minimum, we need to know how to sign our name. Ms. Patel, hang with us. I'm going to share the information I mentioned at the beginning of the session. I'll share it one more time, and then we'll wrap up with you for some final points. So as I mentioned at the start, if you came in a little bit after we started, I want to make sure the educators in the room are aware. We offered up a free Google Drive folder of lessons for email etiquette, learning the essentials of structuring an email, so you will be taken seriously for opportunities. All the major parts of an email. If you like this resource and an online presentation checklist for how to write or how to deliver effective virtual presentations. And if you missed this offer at the start, all you do is you go to the chat, please, for the educators in the crowd. You type your email address and the word interested, email address and the word interested, and we will send you these resources. What we love to do, if you're new to our community, is a 5-minute phone call on Thursday, tomorrow, to say hello, walk you through the material, and encourage you to share it, not just with your students, but with your program, with your school, with your CTE program. We want everybody to benefit from these skills. Every student deserves to know how to communicate properly for opportunities. Couple last points. We have one final webinar in our series. It'll be on May 10th on the world of banking and finance with Adam Rosen from Chime Online Banking. Everybody here today is going to get a certificate that'll come in your email tomorrow as well, a printable certificate where this teacher, you can put the student's name right here so you can customize it for them. And if you're watching on a recording, you're welcome to have these resources as well. The email etiquette resources, just email us to the email in red and we will pass it along to you. Let me go back to the chat. Wonderful. Thank you, Trina. Awesome. We love to help students do basic skills like shaking hands, signing their name, learning to talk to people, learning to be curious. We talked a lot about being curious in our session today with Ms. Patel. She's telling you, she's a supervisor in a large hospital. She wants you to be curious. She wants you to ask questions. She wants you to show you're engaged, right? Everything that I've said, would you like that? Would you like that? She's always said yes, right? Because we want you to know that the students are awake and alert and excited to learn. Ms. Patel, if you could offer some final advice to the students who have watched today, that maybe they're in high school, they're thinking about this career path or health sciences in general, what would be your sort of best advice today? Would it be to continue to look for shadow opportunities, to take the right courses? Like, what would be your wisdom to them?
Yeah, so yes, if you want to come into this field, lab field, then if you get a chance, if you get an opportunity to shadow somebody, that would be great. At least you get an idea what you are getting into, Like, I don't want you to regret after finishing your 4 years and you'll be like, oh, I don't want to be
Right.
here.
Yeah, that would be worse.
And lab is, we are not in a direct contact with the patient. So lab is perfect for the people who do not like to interact with patients. You're definitely going to interact with your co-workers, your managers, other hospital staff, but not with the patient. But if you like that interaction, then you definitely want to choose some other path like nursing or medical school. So if you get a chance to shadow somebody in your local area, that would be great. Even the one day, that will give you an idea like how it looks like working in a lab.
And as we talked about, when you go in for that interview, or there's a phone call, or doing a quick interview to kind of get to know the student, the best thing to start with is, I visited your LinkedIn profile, or I visited the hospital website and I was doing my research. That's the best thing you can start with, because then someone like you would already be very interested in that student, because you can tell that they're just very, very interested and they're willing to do the extra. And it's hard to find people who do extra, right? It's a lot of people will do the minimum, just what's expected. But if you do the extra, you're already, ahead of everybody else and someone that you'd be excited to truly meet. So that really kind of brings we started from there and we ended at the same place. Can we have some Zoom hands to say thank you? We can't do a real applause here, but how about some Zoom hands? I thought this was great information. You really laid it out, got very specific with us, which is what we like. So we appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day. You're in the middle of your lab right now, so we will let you go back to the lab and continue to do the important work that you do. So thank you from our side. And I want to thank everybody for being here, the students and the teachers. Another great session, which we'll put on our YouTube channel for everybody to reference later. And in fact, I'm going to grab that link right before we leave. So if any teachers are interested in subscribing or saving our YouTube channel, I'll throw it right now. So that, here you go, everybody. This is our YouTube channel. All of our previous sessions are organized there, listed there. You can subscribe and get notified for every new webinar that we post. So please hang on to that link and join us in 2 weeks for our session on banking and finance to finish out the academic year. And we'll see you then. Ms. Patel, thank you again. Have a great week, everybody, and a great weekend. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to you and everybody over here over the Zoom. Good luck to all the students and teachers. And thank you for giving me this opportunity, Mr. Danny. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Greer. We appreciate you as always. Have a great day.